It is the final word Women's World Cup daily for the first time this tournament in 2025 in India and Sri Lanka. It was the hosts playing today. I'm Adam Collins, Geoff Lemons with me. We're here for Lacuna Sports. Focus on your game. Lacuna has your kit covered. More about them in the middle of the show. First of all, though, as is the custom, as will be across every day of this tournament, Geoff, sum the whole game up in 30 seconds, please.
Sri Lanka had a chance. They had India in the palm of their hands. 6 wickets down for 124 in strife, but then a century partnership between Deepti Sharma and Amanjot Kaur, and they managed to get the score up to 269 with some hitting from Sneh Runner at the end. That was likely to be too much for Sri Lanka unless Chamari Adapatu did one of those special nights that she sometimes does, but she didn't quite do it tonight. She was out for 43, and eventually they made 211 in a slightly rain-reduced game. Points for India.
Points for India, net run rate boosts for India, although acknowledging that Sri Lanka, it could have been worse.
Could have been worse.
You know what I mean? Like they kind of did the net run rate thing not too badly. The bitter end, but the result was
they needed that.
Conclusion.
They needed that lower down the order. So they had their most veteran players, the veteranness of which I will come to in the Hall of Fame. So let's not go too early on that. But Prabhadani and Ranawira, who have done the job with the ball for about 70 years for Sri Lanka, between them, managed to do it with the bat, to at least bat them into the 46th over out of 47. Score some more runs, get them above 200 and make sure that it wasn't a real net run rate hit. I reckon that's going to be important for the next rank of teams. It's not so much the big three in terms of women's teams really at the moment. It's more the big two with Australia and India.
Yeah.
And then the teams that want to get into those third and fourth spots, they've basically just got to limit the damage when they play India and Australia and then try to sort it out amongst themselves.
Yeah, there's a few threads to pull out here. I would say that I think I might have said this in the weekly show. My impression from watching today, Sri Lanka will win weird games just because they've got the slow bowling group there that are experienced. And even someone like Yudhishthira Prabhadani, who's been around for a million years, it's the experience of not needing to rely on brawn. She relies on variation. She relies on accuracy. She relies on swing. And
she's tiny.
Yeah, she's
teeny tiny. You could put her in your pocket.
I've spent a fair bit of time with Yudhishthira over the years at Fairbreak, and she is truly like up to my waist. And yet she still takes the new ball in international cricket.
She's like the Stuart Little of bowling. It's remarkable.
And she did get Srini Mandana for 8 today, which, was a little bit like the old Bradman. He's out, but with Mandana at the moment, she's out on the basis that she's been such a force in the lead up and that extraordinary 100 she hit against Australia in the warm-up game last week. But I mean, if you want to go to the end, to the start, and think about the chase, when Atapatu falls, and they're put on 50-odd, Summer Wickamara and Atapatu. So much experience between that pair. They probably needed to take it to 150, right? The foundation needed to be so sturdy that some lower order bashing, one batter comes off and, you can conceivably get to within striking distance in the last 5 or 6 overs. But the issue with Sri Lanka is that they are far too reliant upon Chamari Atapatu, and it's been that way forever.
It's not as bad as it was. I will say it's not as pronounced because when you've got Kavisha Dilari in the middle and Nilakshi De Silva, who played well today, when it's not that all was lost, but they were a long way behind the game, and she was determined to at least keep the flame flickering. 35 off 29 in the end, but she hit one monster 6 over deep mid-wicket.
She batted well.
Keen strike, a few boundaries in there as well.
She looked good, and she got undone by a nice bit of bowling from Sneh Runner, who's one of my faves. I was commentating on telly when Sneh Runner came back after like a 9-year absence from international cricket, and I'm always pleased to see her do well.
I think she is our favourite. I reckon she's our favourite Indian women's player. I think between you and I, we collectively, we average out, we have the most fondness for Sneh Runner.
Because the thing was, they told her that she didn't have the right fitness levels to play international cricket, which is now you look at her, she's a lean machine. It's farcical to think that for a time there that it was her body that was holding her back, but not anymore. She was excellent. Picked up, was it 2 for 32 from 10 overs in those middle overs when I think all told the collapse was something like 5 for 59 or something like that, which meant that Sri Lanka weren't able to do the job entirely. And you're right, I was about to dip into that cliche about Sri Lanka wasn't with Atapatu, but it's impossible to avoid thinking it when you're watching them. Like the lived experience of watching Sri Lanka bat is that if she comes off, they can win.
It's broadly true.
They cannot. And it's wrong because they've been, they finished 5th in this edition of the women's championship, right? Sri Lanka are a vastly better team than the last time this World Cup was played, or indeed the World Cup before that. They are much better than they used to be, yet still all roads lead back to Chamari.
It is that. I mean, you think about that 2017 game against Australia in Bristol, where
Bristol,
she made 170 and the rest of the team made about 100 between them, or not even. But that disparity was there. There have been a couple of important chases in the last couple of years when Adapatu hasn't made big scores and the others have come to the party. So it can happen. It just doesn't happen a lot. But I think they'll knock off other teams because, a few years ago I wouldn't have been expecting Sri Lanka to clear 200 against a top-level team very often. They did that today. But really for India, it's about the bench depth. It's that thing that Australia's been relying on for so long, where Amanjot Kaur, who gets lucky, like she got dropped 3 different times, that's the point where Sri Lanka really had the game in hand. So they've got India 6 down. I mean, it starts off with, Mandana out early, slashing to backward point. There's a good partnership between Pratika Rawal and Harleen Deol. They get things up to about 80-odd, and then it's 120 for 2. And that's when Harleen Deol gets out, and then suddenly everything goes crazy. Yeah, Inoka Ranawira takes 3 in an over. She's on a hat trick at one stage, doesn't get that, but she bowls Rodrigues' first ball, and then she gets Harmanpreet at the end of that over as well. So 3 in 5 balls suddenly, and then the next over, the 6th one goes down. Risha Ghosh gets out to Adapatu, who's always there, with the ball as well as a contender. So 124 for 6, and then the catch goes down, and then the second catch goes down, and later the third catch goes down. And, how much more pressure they would have been able to put on had it been Snehurana coming in the 27th over, 28th over, rather than coming in at the end when she had license to swing 28, not from 15 balls. So Amanjot got lucky, but was significant with that 57, and then it was Deepti Sharma, because it usually is. She's just such a sturdy, reliable sort of player, and she makes 53 at a runner ball and gets them a score, and that was always likely to be enough.
I love Ranawira because another theme on the final word over the years has been our borderline obsession with old spinners, and she says 40. And
we'll come to that. We'll come to that.
She's a wily old thing, and she's played for Sri Lanka over 160 times now. There was some highlights during the rain delay of the 2012 T20 World Cup, and that's when she debuted. And you watch the teams in that England Australia final. So really, it's almost like 2 full generations ago because of the leap to professionalism. So there was generation 1A of the professionals, and we're into kind of the second round of that now. This is just pre that, which is an interesting sort of case study in what women's cricket looks like. And to me, that was a real standout of the start of the game. You're going back to the very beginning. That square drive that Pratika Rawal played, it must have been in the second over of the game, I think it was, from memory. I don't want to overplay this point, but moments like that, it feels different. Like you and I have covered an extraordinary amount of women's cricket, right? And you benchmark it on the major tournaments, because the bilateral cricket's one thing. It's when you see them under the glare and the 22,500 people there today, right? That's the biggest ever group game crowd for a women's World Cup fixture ever. So it's a different level of intensity, right? And for her to lean on that square drive, it was a drive to die for, and I'm just not sure we saw shots like that 8 years ago with that finesse and with that power. Maybe a Meg Lanning, right? And maybe a Sarah Taylor, but this is common practice across the women's game now, and it's an emblem of the way in which, through a combination of the T20 tournaments that have bobbed up around the world, of course the aforementioned rise to professionalism, that's not seen as something exceptional. But if you view it in context, it is. When you only go back 8 years, when only half the teams in the comp were being paid meaningfully to be there.
Yeah, you would have that crispness with the occasional player. Mandana played those sort of shots from time to time, or Laura Woolvart did when she first came through, but less that it was widespread. And even some of the shots that Amanjot was playing, that sort of step hit. Even the one she got put down off and the catch that was held, they were both smoked, like way out to deep mid-wicket. So there was power on these shots, and she's a diminutive sort of player as well, Amanjot, but she was, she had this, it was a wonderfully entertaining innings, even though those catches went down. I didn't feel like I was watching a bad knock because everything in between that looked so good. So I don't know. There are new things going on, and there are a couple of new-ish faces in terms of players who we haven't seen play much. So Kranti Gaud coming in the seamer, who looked decent with bowling for India, seam up, and not huge pace, but like decent sort of line on the ball, and then and Sri Charani, the tall curly-haired left arm ortho, who was getting a nice bit of turn when she was, there was that little bit of the ball hanging in the air and then turning away from the right-handers, which you want to see.
It takes bravery and skill to bat the way that Amanjot did as well. Like remembering that she arrives just after that collapse with the 3 wickets in the over that I think you're going to come back to in the Hall of Fame. But that includes Jemima Rodriguez, right? Like that includes a proper world-class batter, and it's Deepti. And after Risha Ghosh falls between times, which again, that's a player who's got heaps of experience now. Amanjot coming in there and bombing it. The fact that she's also capable of taking the new ball, picked up a wicket tonight, it shows they've got that all-round depth in that lower middle order, which is so important to a balanced 50-over team, and Stay Rana following her in the batting lineup, and she clouts 28 from 15 with a couple of dingers at the end as well. So yeah, I feel like that depth for India with the bat is quite extraordinary with that pair coming in at 9 and 10. I do wonder though about like what are they going to do with their 6 bowler? Can you get away with setting up against, and I think Nat Germanos made this point on commentary towards the end, if Pratika Rao's the 6 bowler, is that enough against Australia? I doubt it. So she didn't look, in the available evidence of watching a couple of overs, that did look like watching a game of cricket 8 years earlier, if I'm honest. So that was the only bowler on display this evening who didn't quite look like those revs on the ball.
Yeah.
You can measure.
If one of your front 5 gets hit, what have you got to fall back on?
And again, we're talking about team balance, right? And the revs on the ball that these spinners are getting now in women's cricket. I know it's the smaller ball and thus that can be exacerbated to a bit more of an extent, but that was a feature in both fielding innings tonight, is that the spinners were really in the game from the get-go on surfaces that will be of assistance more and more through the tournament as the pitches are worn more and more.
Before we go to the Hall of Fame, Adam, we are very, very happy to welcome Lacuna Sports to the show. As you talked about, focusing on your game, this is about the fact that cricket kit has not historically been designed for women and girls. And so this is the perfect time during the Women's World Cup to talk about what Lacuna do as a company, where they were founded to create cricket kits specifically for women and girls, so that they weren't using men's and boys kit that didn't fit, where the lines were wrong, where the shirts didn't hang right, where the cuts weren't tailored in the right places, where girls are walking around in these big sacks of shirts and horrible baggy trousers, where you've got white clothing that's like partially see-through in places where you really don't want it to be. Ways to make girls feel comfortable playing age group cricket and then going on to be women who continue playing the game into adulthood, rather than ones who give it up around the age of 13 or 14 because it's all a bit too embarrassing and awkward.
What an absolute joy to be working with Lacuna Sports. We're just chuffed with this one. It's very us. It's very in line with the tournament we're covering here. Being, the first dedicated female brand. And I played, since we recorded the weekly show, Geoff, and Akshi and I played a game together yesterday. And Akshi, who's a member of our Final Word team, and she was wearing the Lacuna kit. And she's saying to me that normally, because she's quite diminutive as well, and Akshi, she's like, normally she has to buy the boys' youth sizes, and then she has to cut the ends of the trousers off. I'm like, she's never had cricket trousers before that just fit normally. And that's the inclusive sizing piece. So this from size 4 to 26, multiple trouser lengths. I mean, it's all there at lacunasports.co.uk. That link will be in the show notes, and we'll tell you a lot more as we go with what they do with teamwear and so on. But yeah, the very fact that, these extraordinary numbers of girls that drop out of sport around the world when they're teenagers, 70% is a number that we've got here, who drop out of sport, which is pretty consistent around the world when they're teenagers. And, it's hard to measure the extent to which ill-fitting clothes are part of that, but it's not nothing. It's not nothing. So if you're listening to this and you're from a club and you're thinking about how you can help grow your women's section or your girls section, a bloody good place to start. lacunasports.co.uk. Chuffed to be in association with them, and we'll tell you their whole story, every inch of it, across the next month on the podcast.
We will be back in a second. It is the final word. It is the daily, the Women's World Cup 2025 daily, India, Sri Lanka, heading into the Hall of Fame. The moments that stood out to us, if you're hearing a Final Word Daily for the first time, the Hall of Fame isn't necessarily the greatest passage of play or the player of the day or the great catch or whatever it is. It might be the thing that stood out to us, the thing that tickled us in a final word way. It might be a great bit of play. It might be something else. As you foreshadowed, yes, Inoka Ranawira is still going at 39 with that spell of 4 for bugger all today, which is nothing because Prabhadani just turned 40 a few days ago, 10 days ago.
Party time. Let's throw a 40th.
Totally. A pool party. Sri Lanka at World Cups famously play better after they've been in a pool. So I hope that at Guwahati they've managed to have a dip, and I hope that the pool party turns things around after this first loss. But so you've got your 39-year-old and your 40-year-old leading the line with the bowling. Sanjawani, the keeper, Kula Surya, who had a horrible last over that we didn't linger on there, but that one that curled down the leg side, went for 4 leg byes, then got hit for a 6 and a 4 and wides and all the rest of it, and then she got a wicket with the last ball. So 18 for 1 off the last over, Adam, is pretty Hall of Fame areas for her. But Kula Surya and Chamari Adapatu and Sanjawani, all three of them are 35, and then Kumari, the left-arm spinner, is 34. So, it feels like we've been watching this group forever.
Yeah.
Surely they go to England next June for the T20 World Cup. What happens next after that? Is there a next generation for Sri Lankan cricket? Or alternatively, do we just say, play forever? Play forever. We want you to keep... I want to see Ranawira bowling left-arm orthos in 12 years' time. In 3 World Cup cycles. I want to see her out there at 52 doing a Wilfred Rhodes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's a bit like, I'm thinking about Hawthorn 1991. The problem there was we win the flag, but, we were nearly out of business in 1996. Let's hope it's not the way for Sri Lankan women's cricket.
Who are they going to merge with?
The urge to merge. Where's Ian Ridley? Where's Hassaman? Anyway.
The Andaman Islands.
Yeah.
They're going to merge with Mauritius.
Yeah, the Maldives. They'll form a mighty combination, the 2 places you can go during COVID en route back to Australia, if I recall correctly. Yeah, it's a thing. I love it. I love old spinners. I am an old spinner. By definition, I am one of them. They are me. We are us.
Yeah.
To quote a Gillard line from years ago. And the person who wrote that line, dear friend of the show. No, I would say that that's a thing. I've lost my train of thought because I got too invested in what you were saying there, Geoff.
I was just thinking you're
what about Deepti? What about, we barely even bloody spoke about player of the match, Deepti Sharma. 53 from 53, picks up 3 for. I loved the fact that, remember the last World Cup game she played, she did the whole, running through the crease and not letting the ball go, as is her wont. I love that about Deepti Sharma. She is shrewd. She's a competitor. There are other things I would say about her if
take the bails off.
Her, but
take the bails off.
She doesn't do it for that reason all the time. She does it to fuck with you, right? That's her mind games thing, right? She did it with Adapatu, and Adapatu's like, we've done enough of this over the years. Come on, go back and bowl, and then bowled her in the same over with the faster ball. And it genuinely overspin, angled in at the leg stump. It was perfect bit of bowling to go between the inside edge and the pad and crash into middle and leg. And I thought that was a classy piece of cricket, which deserved remarking upon again, because as we said before, this goes Chamari Atapatu, does go Sri Lanka, or that's a poorly explained quote from yesterday. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. It's late. It's been a big day.
It has been.
How good the crowd. There were more people there tonight, I reckon, than were there at Ahmedabad for the first game of the Men's World Cup 2 years ago. England, New Zealand.
Good crowd.
There was an 80,000 seater at Ahmedabad, right? 80,000. It's a big capacity there. I think they got about 12,000 in that night. Certainly looked like it on TV. Guwahati could turn into an outstanding venue at Assam there. I noticed as well that there was the tributes to Zubin Garg, the musician who tragically passed away over the weekend, and he's of Assam as well, as I understand it. And they did a musical tribute to him with all the lights in the ground faded, and as Alison Mitchell reported from the ground, she said the photo doesn't quite do justice to how moving it was to witness the crowd's emotion and reverence, tears in some people's eyes as others held a hand to their hearts. So, thinking about the people in that part of India, this is obviously a massive loss, and it'll be a part of the story of the early stages of this World Cup, presumably.
Yeah, and something that hits so close to home in that part of the country, in Assam, where they're getting top level cricket there, which isn't something that you expect to see coming up on the calendar when they're handing out the lollies to the 38, 39 different state associations who are competing to get some games.
Speaking of which, India's next game, they're playing Pakistan. So I saw the BCCI secretary was doing the player of the match tonight after the game. That will all be absurd, I'm sure, although it's obviously not in India.
Colombo.
That game's in neutral venue in Colombo. And Sri Lanka's next
Peter
game
Falk.
is the day before that. They play on Saturday against Australia, and it's Australia who play tomorrow as well. They've got New Zealand at Holkar Cricket Stadium in Indore, one of our favourite grounds in the world. Indoor, with the grandstands folded upon themselves there. Like, it's a bit, can't think of an appropriate comparison, but it's a unique place. It's a smaller capacity, but it does really pack a punch there at indoor. So Australia
and the great history, the great legacy, the Naidu brothers and Carter and those greats of the early days of Indian cricket who laid their mark there.
Geoff, let's wrap it up again. We tip our lids to Lacuna, and what lovely lids they make as well. That hat that Nakshi was wearing yesterday with their ponytail popping out the back there. Focus on your game. Lacuna has your kit covered. More about them tomorrow. More from us tomorrow. I can't remember who's doing the podcast tomorrow. That's always a great sign. Day one, I've already forgotten. I'm pretty sure it's me. And I
think it's you.
It might be
and someone
Daniel
else.
Or Firdaus. Daniel or Firdaus or Cam or Ben or someone else, one of our myriad hosts, Fidel possibly, if we're lucky. He'll be doing some of the shows. The hosts that you know from other tournaments we've done, and we cannot wait to bring every single day of this Women's World Cup to you in 2025. Thanks for joining us this evening. India victorious by 59 runs.
See ya.